Value podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Mastery Partners, where our mission is to equip business owners to maximize business value so they can transition their business on their terms. Our mission was born from the lessons we've learned from over 100 business transactions, which fuels our desire to share our experiences and wisdom so you can succeed. Now here's your host, CEO of Mastery Partners, Tom Bronson.
Hi, this is Tom Bronson, and welcome to Maximize Business Value, a podcast for business owners who are passionate about building long-term sustainable value in their businesses. Today, we honor the 246th anniversary of the birth of our wonderful nation. To commemorate such an important date, we've decided to read Lincoln's Gettysburg Address in its entirety. It's a short speech. The impact of this document will be long remembered, as was foretold by Senator Charles Sumner in Lincoln's eulogy. Sumner said, "Lincoln was mistaken that the world will little note nor long remember what we say here. Rather," he remarked, "the world noted at once what he said and will never cease to remember it." The battle itself was less important than the speech. Now, there are 5 known copies of the speech in Lincoln's handwriting, each with a slightly different text, and was named for the people who first received them: the Nicolay, Hay, Everett, Bancroft, and Bliss copies. 2 copies apparently were written before delivering the speech, one of which was probably used for the reading copy. The remaining ones were produced months later for soldier benefit events where they were raising money for the soldiers. Now, despite widely circulated stories to the contrary, the president did not dash off a copy on board the train to Gettysburg. Lincoln carefully prepared his major speeches in advance. His steady, even script in every manuscript is consistent with a firm writing surface, not the notoriously bumpy Civil War era trains. Ever since Lincoln wrote it in 1864, the Bliss version has been the most often reproduced, most notably on the walls of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. If you don't know this already, Washington, D.C. is my hometown. I was actually born in the district. Many years ago, we had an opportunity to take our family to Washington for a family wedding in the area. So for 3 days, it was like a greatest hits tour, seeing the most important sites as quickly as we could. On the second day, we made our stop at the Lincoln Memorial, a place I had visited so many times as a child. On one wall, you'll find Lincoln's second inaugural address, and on the opposite side is the Gettysburg Address. Because our kids were small at the time, I wanted them to feel the impact of Lincoln's words, one of our greatest presidential orators. So we stood together and I read the walls to them. Now, much to my surprise, and because I was looking up and I didn't see that there was a crowd that gathered around us while I was reading that erupted into applause once I finished. Needless to say, I was a little embarrassed, but it was nice to share that moment with so many people. Now, this particular version is named after Colonel Alexander Bliss, stepson of historian George Bancroft. Bancroft asked President Lincoln for a copy to use as a fundraiser for soldiers. However, because Lincoln wrote on both sides of the paper, the speech could not easily be reprinted, so Lincoln made another copy at Bliss's request. It is the last known copy written by Lincoln and the only one signed and dated by him. Today, it's on display in the Lincoln Room in the White House. So without further ado, here's Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth onto this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that the nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a large sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it far above our power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work that they who fought here have thus far so notably advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead, we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Abraham Lincoln, Gettysburg, November 19th, 1863. Powerful words, aren't they? Though he thought no one would remember this address at all, it is one of the most quoted addresses ever given by a president. Today, we remember President Lincoln, our founding fathers, and what it truly means to be American. The freedoms we take for granted each day are a direct result of the sacrifices of our brave servicemen and women. From the American Revolution to the Civil War to any future battles that might threaten democracy or freedom worldwide, we are grateful for those who fought for America, for freedom and for liberty and justice. Now, if you'd like to learn more about the Gettysburg Address, we found a wonderful site that you can go to. AbrahamLincolnOnline.org is a great place to go. They've got wonderfully researched articles and information on our 16th president, and it's all available for free. So let's cherish the fact that we live in one of the greatest countries ever to exist, and that we have the opportunity to be stewards as business owners of those freedoms that have been so hard fought and won on our behalf. This is the Maximize Business Value podcast, where we give practical advice to business owners on how to build long-term sustainable value in their businesses. Be sure to tune in each week and follow us wherever you found this podcast, and give us a comment or a suggestion for a future podcast. Until next time, I'm Tom Bronson, reminding you to have a wonderful Independence Day and to celebrate our freedom while you maximize business value.
Thank you for tuning in to the Maximize Business Value podcast with Tom Bronson. This podcast is brought to you by Mastery Partners, where our mission is to equip business owners to maximize business value so they can transition on their terms. Learn more on how to build long-term sustainable business value and get free value-building tools by visiting our website, www.masterypartners.com. That's master with a Y, masterypartners.com. Check it out.
That was perfect. I wouldn't make any changes on that.